It's 5 o'clock on a Tuesday. The regular crowd has shuffled out, but I'm all alone in the art room, getting ready to tell you what this project's about. Hi! Guess what? Exciting news! Check this out. That's right, I have the camera. You guys can now see what I'm doing, so I'm very excited. This is kind of a game changer for us. So I'm gonna switch this pack around and tell you what we are doing. This is our folded box project. So we're gonna be doing this week in place of the Fishmobile project, which we're gonna put on hold until next week so that you guys actually get the pre-wedged balls of clay that I'm gonna make for you and then you're gonna pick up at school. So we are going to make a folded box with texture. So you're going to be making 2 boxes. One box is going to have texture on the inside, and the other box is going to have texture on the outside. Fun fact, it's actually a little easier to do the texture on the inside first because you'll care less if you mess it up a little bit around the edges. So I would do that. But how are we going to do this? I actually don't have any examples to show you because right before school started, I got mad at all the people who left stuff here and I threw out a bunch of stuff. Should have kept one. I also gave a lot back, so they may have just gone home. I do have pictures and those will be in your handout for this. In your project packet that I've posted online for you under week 3, you are going to find a box template. If you have the ability to print this out, go ahead and do that. And I want you to trace it onto a light cardboard, such as a cereal box or cracker box. Put the shiny side out. The inside will be what you can trace on, so it should be unmarked. And then the shiny side will go against the clay. That'll help it repel moisture a little bit so it's not all gross and gets distorted and falls apart because the clay is pretty wet. If you don't have the ability to print out at home, that is okay. I have directions for you on the dimensions of this. Just note that the top is rounded, not straight across, which will give you a nice, subtly finished edge that looks a little bit more sophisticated. To get that, just take any rounded edge, or if you've got a compass, just go from the point to point and make that rounded. The angle of it's not so important. And then you too should also put this on a light cardboard if you can. So let's talk about the tools that you're going to need for this project. You're going to be using the low fire white clay. All right, so not the brown clay that we were using for the fish project. Now remember, those clays, the brown clay, it's that medium fire stoneware, that fire is at a different temperature than the low fire white. So you are going to need to make sure that your board is really clean, you've rinsed out your sponge, and that you do not put any of this clay in with the other clay. That's why I gave you 2 bags. So make sure you use both bags. So I'm going to do some experimenting. We're going to switch back over cameras. And let's see if I can figure out how much to tell you to roll out. I suspect it's going to be about 1 inch of clay. The idea is that we're going to roll it out enough that you've got enough clay to be able to make the shape. Your wall should be about 1/8, little over 1/8 to 1/4 inch thick. 1/4 inch is a little thick. Obviously my hands are not doing what the measurements. 1/4 inch is a little thick, but because this is your first project, I would rather you err on the side of producing something and getting a shape and feeling better about it and moving on confidently than having a delicate thin side that just falls apart on you. So you're going to need to allow time to do this project. It is due Friday at the start of class, which is 7:30 a.m. 7:40. 10-minute reprieve. There you go. You got till 7:40 to do this. So you're going to need some drying time. I suspect this clay is pretty wet. I saw some in the pile there that actually had moisture inside of the bag that I could see. So if your clay looks like that, you're going to need to allow some drying time. So I would recommend rolling out both of these projects at the same time and then letting them sit and dry. And if you follow the directions, you should have already know what's coming. And then let those dry kind of at the same time and then work it. Might want to make a third one just in case one falls apart. All right. There are no guarantees with clay. anything can go wrong at any point of a project, from getting it started to transporting it to putting it in the kiln, taking it out of the kiln. I've had people drop their projects taking it out of the kiln, and it was all for naught. So know that there are no certainties in life when we are dealing with this medium. All right, I'm going to pause and cut. Okay, I am back with clay. I have cut this a little bit generously because, so this side is a little bit thinner than this side. This is almost 1.5 inches, I would say, and then this side is probably under 1 inch. Fun fact, I don't know if you guys know this, the space on your thumb between your knuckle and the end of your finger is usually about 1 inch long. So you can use that as a rule of thumb, to sort of guesstimate how much clay you needed. I think this is enough. I'm going to roll it out and see. Now, remember that I gave you guys all brand new rolling pins, and I have a new one too. So I'm not sure, because these aren't what we would call in cooking seasoned. That was me doing air quotes, seasoned. The clay might stick to it, so we're going to find out. As you're working the clay, particularly if your clay is, oh boy, this isn't working real well. Particularly if your clay is wet, it's gonna want to stick to the board. All right, this might not be the best spot ever. So I'm working on top of the light table beside my desk, by the way. Probably not the greatest spot to be doing clay, but there we go. So one thing that you're gonna want to do is, after you've worked it for a little bit, I would flip it over and make sure that you can move it. Now, this is, if you've ever rolled out pastry crust, similar process, you're doing the same thing. You're rolling it out, you're not folding it on top of each other, you know, the layers on top of each other, because you don't want to introduce air into this. You just want to smooth it out. Ooh, so I'm getting a little thin right there. So I'm actually just going to, where's my cutting tool? Okay, I'm just going to cut this little edge off and set it there. So you want to check and see as you're going, okay, I'm pretty close. So I need to go this way a little bit and then this way a little bit. So you're working the clay from the middle to the edges and trying to do that evenly, which is, of course, always challenging. Now I can feel mine's got some divots in it, so I haven't done this perfectly. All right, let's check. I don't seem to be moving the clay around very much. All right, I'm gonna flip it. And you can see the moisture's coming out of it too. I have to say, I'm not super impressed with these rolling pins. They're a little herky-jerky. I don't know whether they need to be used more. All right, if I creatively move it around, I've got it. So, and I realize I have not followed my own directions and I'm using the paper, but again, it's 5 o'clock on a Tuesday, so I want to get home. I will print myself on it. Oh, wait. So I have now returned with the real pattern that you will be using. So we'll see if it works. I'm your test case. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm using the cutting tool that you guys have. It's the knife end that you guys see. So that's what we're using. Also, full disclosure, I have had a lot of coffee today. And boy, is my hand shaky. It's very annoying. Okay, notice it doesn't take much pressure to go through the clay. Try not to cut into the board. I actually can't get these canvas boards anymore. So I'm going to take off the pattern. I'm definitely on the thicker side here, but let's take a look. Make sure your clay, can peel off the board. If you need an assist, there's a couple ways you can do this. But one way is I gave all of you ribs in your bags, and you can use this to try to, it's not actually its primary purpose. You're actually using this to smooth down clay. But in a situation like this, you can help use it just to sort of peel it up. So you can see my sides are a little thick, definitely closer to 1/4 inch, if not a little bit more. Let's see if I've got a ruler. Actually, it's just under 1/4, so that's okay. This side might be a little thicker. Yeah, that's right about at the 1/4, even a little over. So that's okay, all right? So that's about what you should have. Now, you've got a choice at this point. I think this is too wet for me to do much with. So I could let it dry. I'm going to, which is probably the safer bet, I'm going to be a little bit gutsy because I have things to do, places to go, and people to see. And I am going to apply texture to it now. If I were you, I would wait until this dries a little bit. But again, I am busy. So you guys all got texture kits. I'm going to go ahead and just pull out this one. I would use one of the full sheet kits if you've got it. And I realize this is very hard to see. So doesn't really matter which side you use. Mine, I'm going to have to do it in pieces because it's not going to fully match up. So I'm going to gently lay this on and press the texture into it. You can even, if you're very, very gentle about it, take your rolling pin and gently apply a little pressure just to make sure that you've got the pattern evenly in the clay. But again, you're not trying to roll it out like you were before. This is just more applying some pressure. And you can peek, and it looks like actually I was a little too gentle. So I'm going to use a little bit more pressure, which, believe me, that is always the better option. Okay. All right. And then I'm going to overlay this and do pressure on the other half of the mat. All right, that's pretty decent. I'd like it to be a little deeper, but I'm okay with that. All right, at this point, I am going to let this sit overnight, and we'll do a second video tomorrow, and I'll talk about joining. So I'm just gonna cover this up in plastic wrap and just let it sit there. I'm also gonna make sure before I leave for the evening that I can pick this up off this mat. And when you're doing this, be really careful of these corners because this is where the clay wants to crack. So I would sort of loosen up kind of all of the edges, get to that corner, slide your rib under it, and then see if you can pick it up. So there we go. So I will put this in plastic wrap, and you can see a little bit of the texture. All right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow.